This is the story of a thought virus called critical theory, a virus of the mind that started in 1923 and became a full-fledged pandemic by 2020. The virus was devised in an academic laboratory known as the Frankfurt School in Germany. It crossed the Atlantic in 1935, where gain-of-function research was carried on at Columbia University in New York City. Over the years, critical theory spread to universities across America, from Harvard to the University of California, San Diego in the West. As always happens, a number of variants have spun off from the original virus. Critical race theory morphed in the 1970s and critical gender theory in the 90s. At the heart of all forms of critical theory, whether it's critical legal theory, critical pedagogy, or any other variant, is a seemingly noble goal: to liberate oppressed people groups from their oppressors. In critical race theory, the whites, specifically those of European descent, are the oppressors. The oppressed are called BIPOC. That's short for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. BIPOCs are portrayed as being held back from their full potential by whiteness, which presses in from all sides, causing them, according to critical race theory activists, to leave their best gifts at the door. In critical gender theory, the oppressors are those who hold to Judeo-Christian norms of sex, marriage, and gender. They believe homosexual relations are sin, marriage is between one man and one woman, and there are only two genders, male and female. The lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, so they say, must be liberated from the oppression of Judeo-Christian norms. But there's a catch. Mere social acceptance of non-traditional norms is no longer the goal. The ultimate goal now is eradication of the so-called oppressive Christian norms by canceling them. This canceling is done through fear of stigma, fear of losing one's job or position. The net effect is the elimination of dissent altogether. For example, to deny that a man can have a baby or to refuse to refer to a female coworker with a male pronoun will be your ticket out the door, no questions asked. If someone is guilty of oppression, they have forfeited their right to speak. Georg Lukács, a Hungarian Marxist who helped forge the philosophy of the Frankfurt School, often said, "Who will free us from the yoke of Western civilization?" When Jesse Jackson and 500 students marched in Stanford in 1987 chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western Civ has got to go," don't think it was just about a university class. Critical theory activists are on a mission to remove any feelings of abnormality among people who do not subscribe to the traditional norms of Western civilization. They are trying to set normal at a new temperature. That's what's happening right now. The virus has reached pandemic levels in K-12 schools, places of business, and government agencies. But be aware, no formal classes in critical theory are taught in these places. You don't have to teach a class called Critical Theory 101 to effectively spread the virus. The transmission is done through such positive-sounding topics as cultural competency, diversity, equity, inclusion, and social-emotional learning. Who could be against these things? You criticize them at your peril. That's the irony of it all. The first word in critical theory is critical, yet the criticism doesn't go both ways. Critical theory relentlessly and mercilessly criticizes those they say are oppressors. This makes it easy to cancel them. Every past white, European, or Christian sin is revisited and repeated again and again. They shame the oppressors, starting in elementary school. Caucasians, both young and old, who never thought they were racist before, are now thinking they are inherently racist because they cannot separate themselves from a system of so-called whiteness in which Christianity plays a central role. This is truly a deadly virus of the mind. If people hear enough times that America is systemically racist, with a system stacked against BIPOCs in favor of whiteness and white systemic privilege, causing BIPOCs to leave their best gifts at the door, how do you think this might affect the attitude of non-whites toward whites? Think about it. Critical race activists are creating dramatically more racism than they're solving. and they've been working on this for decades. If it's commonly thought that whites possess power and resources that were accumulated through oppression, it makes it much easier to take back what the oppressed believe is rightfully theirs. If it's not handed over willingly, it can now be taken by force. Once the so-called oppressors are either unable or unwilling to push back for fear of being canceled, stigmatized, jobless, or worse, the system will topple. It's the Marxist way of doing things. If this happens, the new oppressors will make the old so-called ones look like Sunday school teachers, literally. This brings us to the most important question. Is there a cure for the virus? Yes, there is. There are many things we can do, and it's never too late to do what is right. What's needed is an army of antibodies. This pandemic can be stopped through public policy, school choice, and an awakened citizenry. To learn more about what we can do together, the Family Policy Institute of Washington is generating antibodies by promoting sound public policy, mobilizing community leaders, and equipping everyday citizens to do what must be done to make our nation what it assuredly once was, a city on a hill. Go to fpiw.org/critical to see what you can do right now to make a difference. fpiw.org/critical.